We were never meant to find them. Our cartographer fleet had been assigned the Outer Spiral Reconnaissance, a dull patrol that involved scanning uncharted systems for habitable planets and cataloging their chemical compositions. It was a task usually given to junior crews, an academic exercise, nothing more. But on the 12th rotation of our survey, sensors picked up an anomaly. A planet. Not unusual in itself, worlds are scattered everywhere in this spiral arm, but this one was alive. The readings came first as faint pulses in the atmosphere: carbon dioxide, oxygen, methane, nitrogen. But deeper scans revealed something far rarer: artificial signatures, structured radio waves, metallic constructions laced across its surface like veins. A planet scarred not by tectonics, but by intelligence. We had found a species. Protocol demanded we remain hidden, cloaked in the upper orbits, monitoring silently. I ordered the ship to maintain distance as our observation arrays unfolded, directing all lenses toward the blue-green sphere below. I had expected primitive life, perhaps creatures at the dawn of tool use or early city builders hammering stone. What we found was far more unsettling. The species called themselves humans. From our first day of surveillance, we were confused. Their behavior made little sense. They were a fragile species, soft-bodied, dependent on oxygen, vulnerable to the elements. Their planet was hostile, with hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, droughts, and diseases that claimed countless lives. By all logic, such a species should have been extinct. And yet, they thrived, not simply survived, but dominated. I reviewed the planetary scans. Their kind had spread into every corner of their world: frozen tundras, burning deserts, dense forests, deep oceans, mountains that should have killed them. No environment seemed too hostile. Where survival should have been impossible, humans had bent the environment to their will. That was our first sign something was wrong. Their cities glittered like neural networks across the darkened continents. Billions of lights clustered in patterns we could not comprehend. They were creatures of fire and metal, stacking towers into the sky, carving scars of stone and steel into the planet's skin. Their machines moved faster than any creature of flesh should be able to do so, devouring energy from beneath the ground in a frenzy that seemed unsustainable.
Yet it was their signals, the endless streams of electromagnetic chatter, that first revealed their true nature. At first, we thought the transmissions were noise, meaningless bursts of color and sound. But when translated, we saw images, symbols, stories. Humans told tales of themselves. And those tales were horrifying. We expected myths of harmony with their world, of reverence for life. Instead, they spoke of war, endless war, entire nations slaughtering one another over invisible lines drawn on their planet's surface. They invented weapons that could annihilate thousands in moments. They celebrated violence as if it were entertainment. Their films and broadcasts depicted blood, conquest, betrayal, greed. I remember the silence in the observation chamber as the crew watched their archives for the first time. My second officer muttered, "How are they still alive? A species this destructive should collapse upon itself." I had no answer. Day after day we collected evidence. Our analysts categorized their technology, rapidly advancing beyond what most species achieve in such a short time frame. Within mere centuries, they had leapt from crude tools to machines that could shatter their own planet. Nuclear fire, biological plagues, atmospheric poisons. They wielded extinction as if it were just another tool. Yet still they endured. Worse, they multiplied. Their numbers grew exponentially, filling every niche of the planet. Where one human died, 10 more rose. Where disease swept across their lands, they invented medicines. Where famine struck, they cultivated deserts. Their resilience was unnatural. We began calling them the apex anomaly. The council back home demanded updates. I tried to temper my reports, to keep them clinical, factual, but privately, within the crew, we whispered of darker fears. These humans were not merely survivors. They were predators, predators of the highest order, except their prey was not just animals, it was everything. Land, water, air, even one another. Nothing was safe from them. On the 25th day of orbit, I witnessed an event that confirmed my unease. Through the global feeds, I observed two nations threatening each other with total annihilation. They called their weapons nuclear warheads, devices that could level entire cities in firestorms. For weeks, their leaders exchanged threats, posturing with weapons capable of ending their species entirely. And yet, despite the danger, they smiled in public, proud of their power. It was then I realized humans flirt with extinction not as a mistake, but as a habit. Their species dances with death constantly. They invent disasters for themselves, then somehow survive them. Each crisis makes them stronger, sharper, more ruthless. It is as if their entire evolution has been a training ground for survival at any cost. I have studied many species in my career. Most civilizations expand until they meet resistance, then plateau. They stabilize, seek balance, and endure. But humans never plateau. Their history is a chain of upheavals, wars, revolutions, collapses, rebirths. Each time, they rebuild stronger. I fear what they will become when they finally reach beyond this planet. My crew believes we are safe for now, as their spacecraft are primitive, barely reaching their nearest celestial body. But I see the trajectory. Their progress accelerates with each generation. What took other species millennia to accomplish, humans achieve in mere centuries. Their hunger for exploration burns as fiercely as their hunger for conquest. They will not remain confined to this world. And when they break free, they will spread like a contagion to stars, to galaxies, to the universe itself. That night, as I stared down at the spinning blue sphere, I understood the truth. We had not discovered them. They had been waiting for us to notice. And in that moment, for the first time in all my years of service, I felt fear. Not of death nor of war, but of the realization that we were not observing a fragile, primitive race. We were observing the universe's most dangerous predator in its infancy. And predators grow.
To the High Council of Sciphorian Order, submitted by Commander Tival of the Cartographer Fleet. I submit this formal report regarding the species identified on Designate World Sol 3, self-identified as Earth, inhabited by bipedal organisms known as humans. We have now observed them for 40 solar rotations of their planet, an adequate span to distinguish both daily rhythms and long-term patterns. I regret to inform the Council that the species is far more advanced and far more dangerous than initial projections suggested. When we first located them, my officers and I believed they would conform to the standard developmental arc we have charted across hundreds of worlds. Most intelligent life follows a predictable curve: primitive tools, agriculture, societal structures, then a gradual advancement into energy manipulation and spaceflight. The majority reach a point of equilibrium, balancing technological progress with the sustainability of their biospheres. Humans do not follow this pattern. They leap forward, then collapse, then rebuild. Each collapse strengthens them, not weakens them. Their civilizations rise and fall like waves upon their oceans, but every crest is higher than the last. Empires burn, yet from the ashes new ones emerge, fiercer, larger, more ambitious.
We reviewed thousands of their historical records. Their species has endured plagues that should have erased them, wars that annihilated millions, natural disasters that would have broken the spirit of gentler beings. And yet they not only recover, they thrive in chaos. I present evidence from their own archives. The Black Death, a plague that killed nearly 1/3 of their kind. Instead of perishing, they advanced medicine, reorganized societies, and accelerated the collapse of outdated systems. Out of unimaginable loss came innovation. Global wars. Within the span of a single century, they fought conflicts on a planetary scale, deploying weapons capable of annihilation. Cities burned, millions died, yet from the rubble they produced unprecedented technological leaps. Jet propulsion, nuclear energy, computational machines. Environmental exploitation. They consume their planet with little restraint, poisoning air, land, and water. Yet when pushed to the brink, some factions develop methods to reverse the damage: renewable energy, genetic manipulation, terraforming of their own lands. Other species confronted with such trials often enter terminal decline, but humans seem to sharpen themselves through suffering, as if catastrophe is not an obstacle but a forge. I must also draw the Council's attention to their duality of nature, a contradiction that complicates assessment. Humans are capable of astonishing cruelty. They enslave, torture, and exterminate their own kind without hesitation. Their wars are not always born of survival. They kill for ideology, for territory, for resources, even for pride. They invent justifications after the act, weaving philosophies around slaughter to make it acceptable. But in the same breath, they display a capacity for compassion unrivaled among known species. They create works of beauty, art, music, literature that evoke emotions even in us. They risk their lives to save strangers. They form bonds so strong that they willingly die for others of their kind. It is this contradiction that unsettles me most. For cruelty alone can be anticipated, and compassion alone can be trusted. But when both exist in equal measure, unpredictability becomes the greatest danger. Humans are not bound by one instinct. They are capable of anything. Our analysis of their current technological state raises further alarms. They are in possession of nuclear weaponry, devices capable of extinguishing vast portions of their population within moments. Unlike other species who developed such weapons only for deterrence, humans actively threaten each other with them. Entire nations base their defense strategies on the possibility of mutual annihilation. And yet, alongside this, they send fragile ships into their nearby void. They place satellites into orbit. They speak of colonizing other planets in their system. The same species that builds bombs to burn themselves also dreams of stepping beyond their cradle. They are a paradox made flesh. I must stress this point. Their adaptability borders on the impossible. Their biology is unremarkable by galactic standards, but their minds compensate. They learn, adjust, and improvise faster than any recorded species. When they lack strength, they invent weapons. When they lack speed, they invent vehicles. When they lack survival traits, they build technology to bypass nature entirely.
Where others accept limitation, humans refuse. I watched a broadcast in which one of their thinkers declared,
We will not accept the impossible. We will make it possible. Such arrogance would be dismissed as delusion if not for their history of proving it true. This is not idle speculation. During my watch, I observed an event on their surface that illustrates this trait. A region of their planet was struck by an immense storm, flooding cities, destroying infrastructure, leaving thousands without shelter. Any other species would have required generations to recover. Humans began rebuilding within weeks. Aid flowed from across the planet. Innovations in engineering were shared. New systems were designed to withstand greater storms in the future. Destruction was not an end to them, it was an incentive. I confess to the Council that my crew grows uneasy. Our duty is to observe, but what we have found is more than a curiosity. It is a warning. If humans remain confined to their world, their destructiveness may eventually consume them. Their weapons, their greed, their reckless exploitation, these may yet end their species before they breach into the greater universe. But if they succeed in reaching beyond their planet, if they establish themselves among the stars, the consequences will be incalculable. A species so reckless, so adaptable, so comfortable with chaos would spread like fire through dry forest. They would not stop. They do not know how to stop. Some among my officers suggest interference, elimination even, a surgical strike now, while they are still fragile, before they gain true interstellar mobility. The logic is simple. Remove the threat before it grows. But I hesitate. Because, Council, I must admit this truth. I do not think we would succeed. Humans have destroyed each other with weapons far beyond their tolerance. They have endured extinction-level events of their own making. They are still here. I believe even if we struck them, some remnant would survive. Some fragment would endure, rebuild, and return stronger. Destroying them may not be possible. The only safety lies in distance, to watch, to learn, and to prepare for the day when humans are no longer confined to Earth. For that day will come. And when it does, the galaxy will face not a fragile species, but the most dangerous force evolution has ever produced. I submit this report with utmost urgency. Signed, Commander Tval.
To the High Council of Xiphorian Order. Continuation of report, designate World Sol 3, submitted by Commander Tval. Counselors, you asked for deeper clarification regarding the psychological composition of the species known as humans. With respect, I must warn you, the more I learn of them, the less I understand, and the more concerned I become. What unsettles me most is not their weapons, nor their relentless adaptability, nor even their appetite for chaos. It is their capacity for what I will call the paradox of kindness, an instinct that sits alongside their cruelty, interwoven into their very being. At first, my officers believed it to be an anomaly. We observed humans killing one another in vast numbers, waging wars over resources and belief systems. Then, in the next breath, we saw those same humans risk their lives to save complete strangers, even those from rival groups. The contradiction was so stark, it seemed irrational, even pathological. But the more we studied, the clearer it became. Their compassion is not an error. It is a weapon. Case study: the stranger effect.
We observed an incident in one of their crowded urban centers. A small creature, one of their young, wandered into a dangerous roadway filled with high-speed machines. Before the child could be struck, an unrelated adult hurled themselves into the path, pulling the child to safety at the cost of their own life. No genetic relation, no promised reward, only the reflexive instinct to save another. Among most species, altruism is limited to direct kinship groups, small tribes, or symbiotic partners. It has boundaries, but humans, their boundaries shift. They extend care to those not of their blood, not of their tribe, sometimes even not of their species. They form bonds with animals, protecting them as if they were family. Some humans even dedicate their lives to defending ecosystems they cannot fully comprehend. Why does this matter? Because it makes them unpredictable. A predator that kills for food or defense follows rules. A species that kills and saves according to no consistent logic cannot be anticipated. The weaponization of compassion. At first glance, compassion seems harmless, even admirable. But when paired with their intelligence and adaptability, it becomes dangerous. Consider their conflicts. Time and again, humans rally around the suffering of others, transforming grief into unity, unity into armies, armies into unstoppable force. Their wars are not won by strength alone, but by belief, by the conviction that they fight for one another, for justice, for ideals. This is why they are so difficult to defeat. Even when broken, even when oppressed, some spark of kindness, a memory of love, of loyalty, of shared struggle ignites within them, and suddenly they rise again. We have watched entire populations throw off conquerors, not because they were stronger, but because they refused to abandon each other. It is compassion that gives them endurance. Contradictions in culture. Our analysts cataloged thousands of their cultural artifacts, what they call stories. Here, too, the paradox emerges. Some tales glorify violence, heroes wielding weapons, villains destroyed in fire and blood. Yet others celebrate self-sacrifice, forgiveness, and redemption. Humans simultaneously idolize conquerors and peacemakers, killers and healers. They hold both ideals in their minds at once, switching between them as circumstance demands. When one tactic fails, they pivot to the other. When cruelty breaks them, kindness restores them. It is a cycle, a dual engine of survival. We found records of their greatest leaders. Many were conquerors, yes, but others, astonishingly, changed the world without a single weapon, using only words, compassion, and vision. This too unsettled us. A species that can dominate by force and by empathy has no single point of weakness. The survival of stories. Perhaps most disturbing is the endurance of their memories. Humans do not merely act, they record, share, and immortalize their act in endless archives. A single sacrifice can inspire millions for generations. A single kindness can ripple across centuries. We studied one such account, a man who during one of their greatest wars refused to abandon the wounded. He carried injured companions across battlefields, risking death countless times. Though his body eventually failed, his story lived on, shaping how future generations defined courage and loyalty. Counselors, this is the true danger. Their stories are weapons sharper than any blade. They turn memory into fuel, tragedy into inspiration, loss into purpose. How do you fight a species that refuses to let its dead truly die? A field incident. During the 60-second rotation of observation, one of our cloaked probes malfunctioned, crashing unnoticed into a remote human settlement. 2 of the locals found it, though they could not possibly comprehend its construction. Instead of fearing it, they carried it carefully to safety. One of them even attempted to shield it from a storm. They protected what they did not understand. When my officers reported this, a chill passed through the chamber. If they could show kindness to an alien object, something strange, unknown, potentially dangerous, what will they do when they finally meet another intelligent species? Will they embrace us or destroy us in the name of protecting us? I no longer know which outcome terrifies me more. Why this matters to the Council? It would be simple if humans were merely cruel. Cruelty can be met with deterrence. It would be simple if they were merely kind. Kindness can be reasoned with. But humans are both, in measures that shift like tides, making them impossible to predict. One moment they are butchers, the next saviors, and they themselves do not always know which they will be until the moment arrives. This duality means they cannot be trusted to remain confined by patterns. Every strategy, every countermeasure risks collapse when confronted with the chaos of their compassion. For while cruelty makes them dangerous, kindness makes them enduring. And it is endurance, counselors, that wins in the end. Personal reflection, unredacted. I submit this portion against regulation, but I must speak plainly. I find myself conflicted. Watching them laugh together, embrace one another, protect their young, I feel something akin to respect, at times even admiration. But then I remember, these are the same creatures who incinerate their own cities, who poison their air and oceans, who enslave and slaughter without hesitation. I do not think they see the difference between kindness and cruelty. To them, both are simply tools, both are survival. And a species that wields love and hate with equal skill is the most dangerous kind of predator the galaxy can ever know. I await further instruction. Signed, Commander Tival.
To the High Council of Sciphorian Order. Continuation of report. Designate world Sol 3. Submitted by Commander Tival. Counselors, your request for a deeper examination into the origins of human aggression has led me to study their evolutionary record. What I have discovered is unsettling. Violence is not a corruption of their species. It is not an aberration of culture or the byproduct of unstable politics. It is the foundation of their existence. Violence shaped them. It sharpened them. It made them human. Origins in prehistory. From the earliest evidence, humans were not the strongest creatures on their world. They lacked natural armor, had no claws, no venom, no wings for escape. Their bodies were fragile, easily broken. Yet their ancestors endured because they learned to fight with what they had: rocks, sticks, fire. Predators larger and faster should have annihilated them. Instead, humans organized. They hunted in groups, overwhelming prey many times their size. They developed cooperation not for peace, but for killing. Their earliest social structures were built around the hunt. Who led, who followed, who struck the killing blow. Archaeological layers show the aftermath. Bones of rival groups cracked by weapons. settlements burned by human hands. Their first art, carved on stone walls, depicts not serenity, but violence. Hunters surrounding animals, spears raised high. Violence was not a side effect of survival. It was the tool of survival. The tribal wars. As their numbers grew, humans turned their weapons on one another. Tribes clashed for resources, territory, dominance. Where other species establish boundaries and retreat to avoid extinction, humans advanced. Every battle refined them. The weak were eliminated. The cunning survived. And through this endless conflict, they developed a crucial skill: innovation under pressure. Each new weapon inspired another. Spears led to bows. Bows led to blades. Blades to armor. Armor to siege engines. Siege engines to gunpowder. Gunpowder to artillery. The cycle never slowed. With every act of violence, their ingenuity expanded. It is no exaggeration to say that without war, humans would not have advanced so quickly. Their greatest leaps forward, the mastery of metallurgy, chemistry, engineering, all emerged first from their hunger for dominance. The science of death. Counselors, I have studied hundreds of civilizations. Most discover conflict and later transcend it. They realize the futility of war and turn to balance. But humans never abandoned war. They systematized it. They built institutions dedicated solely to violence. Armies, navies, later air forces, then weapons that could strike from across their planet. They train their young to fight before they are grown. They elevate warriors into heroes, celebrating conquest in song and sculpture. Even their sciences bend toward destruction. The same physics that gave them electricity also gave them nuclear fire. The same biology that cured diseases also created engineered plagues. Their thirst for knowledge cannot be separated from their thirst for weapons. And disturbingly, they do not restrict their violence to necessity. They often fight for ideals, for pride, for abstract lines drawn on maps. They will slaughter for belief itself. An observation from orbit. On the 103rd rotation, I observed one of their organized conflicts in progress, a war between two of their nations. It was not total annihilation, but a limited battle, yet the scale was astonishing. Thousands of humans engaged in synchronized violence, coordinated through machines that transmitted commands across vast distances. Explosions tore apart their cities. Entire landscapes were reshaped by fire and steel. I noted the efficiency of their logistics, the way food, fuel, and weapons flowed seamlessly to sustain the slaughter. It was not chaos, it was organized, disciplined, calculated. But what chilled me most was the aftermath. When the war concluded, survivors from both sides immediately began planning the next. Factories that once built tanks shifted to building vehicles for civilians. Laboratories that made chemical weapons now produced medicines. They repurposed their tools with ease. War did not cripple them, it prepared them.
Violence as culture. Even when not actively fighting, humans surround themselves with symbols of violence. Their games mimic war. Their stories glorify heroes who kill. Their entertainment depicts blood and conquest, consumed not with horror, but with joy. My officers were horrified to discover that young humans, mere offspring, play with objects shaped like weapons. They pretend to kill long before they understand what death is. Violence is not only survival to them, it is ritual, tradition, amusement. And still, somehow, they also condemn it. Their philosophers debate morality.
Their laws attempt to limit cruelty. Their religions often preach peace. Yet even within those same religions, they slaughter one another in the name of belief. This hypocrisy reveals the core truth. Humans do not wish to end violence. They wish to control it, harness it, turn it against their enemies while shielding their allies. What this means for the galaxy. Counselors, consider the implications. Humans are a species that has evolved by refining violence into art. Every failure makes them stronger. Every loss teaches them new methods. Every war prepares them for the next. They are predators not only of bodies, but of knowledge itself. They consume lessons from each conflict and add them to their arsenal. No defeat ever remains permanent. No enemy ever truly breaks them. And now, standing on the threshold of interstellar travel, they carry with them millennia of practice in the one skill most species eventually outgrow, the skill of killing. We cannot expect them to leave violence behind as they ascend. On the contrary, they will bring it with them, refining it into forms we cannot yet imagine. They will adapt their weapons to the void, to alien physiology, to technologies they have not yet encountered. And when they meet other civilizations, they will view them as they have always viewed others, competitors, rivals, prey. Personal note. I once hoped that their compassion might temper them, that their kindness might balance their cruelty. But the more I study, the clearer it becomes. Kindness and cruelty are not opposites to them. They are partners, two hands of the same body. Their kindness gives them unity. Their violence gives them power. Together, they make humans unstoppable. Counselors, if the universe is a garden, then humans are not simply weeds. They are fire. They spread, they consume, and they transform everything they touch. I submit this chapter of my report not as speculation, but as a warning. Violence is not what makes humans dangerous. It is what makes them inevitable. Signed, Commander Tival.
To the High Council of Sciphorian Order. Continuation of report. Designate World Sol 3. Submitted by Commander Tival. Counselors, if violence is humanity's weapon, then adaptation is their shield. I have now spent 200 planetary rotations observing their survival mechanisms, and I have concluded that adaptability is not simply a trait of their biology. It is the defining principle of their existence. They adapt to environments. They adapt to disaster. They adapt to enemies. And most dangerously, they adapt to failure. Where most species encounter limits, humans bend or break them. Where others accept extinction, humans improvise survival. They are not bound by nature. They rewrite it. Adaptation to environment. No single habitat restrains them. They live in deserts that should kill them with heat, and in tundras where no liquid water flows. They build floating cities on oceans, carve homes into mountains, and sprawl across fertile plains. Their tools and clothing change with the climate, allowing them to thrive where no other mammal should. I studied a remote settlement located deep within a frozen wasteland. The air was unbreathable without protection, the temperatures far below survivability. Yet humans lived there. They heated their shelters with fire, later with machines, and wrapped their bodies in skins, then fabrics, then engineered fibers. They were not content to migrate away from danger. They conquered it. On the opposite extreme, I found records of civilizations rising in scorching deserts where no water flowed freely.
Instead of abandoning these barren lands, they invented systems to harvest water from underground, built irrigation networks, and sustained vast populations under a blazing sun. From mountain tops to ocean trenches, from fertile fields to barren wastelands, humans adapt, not as individuals, but as civilizations. Adaptation to disaster. Counselors, I must emphasize, humans do not merely endure catastrophes, they grow stronger from them. When fire consumed their cities, they built with stone. When stone crumbled, they built with steel. When storms destroyed their homes, they invented new architecture to resist wind and flood. They learn from every failure. During one of their greatest conflicts, entire cities were incinerated in moments by their own weapons. Any other species would have collapsed, lost faith in technology, retreated from the abyss. Humans did not. They rebuilt the ruins into even larger cities with stronger infrastructure, faster technology, and denser populations. To them, destruction is not an end, it is an opportunity to rebuild more efficiently. Adaptation to enemies. Their conflicts, as I described earlier, are endless. Yet it is their ability to adapt to enemies that terrifies me most. No tactic defeats them for long. Poison gas once crippled their armies, so they invented masks and antidotes. Fortifications once protected their cities, so they invented machines to tear through stone. Naval superiority once dominated their seas, so they invented flying machines to rain destruction from above. Every weapon spawns a countermeasure. Every countermeasure spawns a new weapon. They are locked in an evolutionary arms race with themselves, and instead of collapsing under the weight of endless conflict, they thrive within it. Their enemies, often humans themselves, force constant adaptation, and so, generation after generation, they grow sharper, harder, faster. This cycle ensures that when they finally encounter alien opposition, they will not be meeting adaptation for the first time. They will be masters of it. Adaptation of the mind. Perhaps their most dangerous trait is not physical or technological, but psychological. Humans are capable of mental flexibility that borders on instability. They hold contradictory ideas simultaneously, adjusting beliefs when necessary, abandoning traditions when they no longer serve survival. They can believe in absolute truths, then replace those truths with new ones without hesitation. Their ability to restructure thought allows them to shift course faster than any species I have ever studied. This flexibility extends to identity itself. A human may be loyal to family, then tribe, then nation, then to concepts even more abstract: humanity, justice, freedom. They can redefine who they are and who they fight for at a moment's notice. This gives them a terrifying unity when threatened. When survival demands it, they can set aside centuries of hatred and ally with former enemies. I reviewed historical records where bitter rivals fought together against a greater foe. Once the threat was gone, they returned to conflict. Their loyalty is fluid, shifting like water around obstacles. This is not chaos, it is adaptability at the level of identity. Adaptation to failure. This, counselors, is the core of my warning. Every failure humans suffer becomes a stepping stone. Each defeat becomes instruction. They do not crumble under loss, they metabolize it. Consider their exploration of flight. For centuries, their attempts ended in failure, broken machines, shattered bodies. Yet, instead of surrendering, they refined each error. They studied the wreckage, corrected the flaws, and tried again. Eventually, they flew. Within a single century, they flew not only across their planet, but beyond it. Or consider their attempts at medicine. Their ancestors believed illness was caused by spirits. Countless treatments failed, sometimes worsening disease. But each failure taught them something new. Today, they manipulate the building blocks of life itself. Failure does not kill them. Failure educates them. This, more than violence, more than compassion, is what makes them unstoppable. An example from observation. During the 182nd rotation, one of their exploration machines, an unmanned probe, malfunctioned in the void beyond their planet. It should have ended in silence, drifting as debris. Instead, their scientists rallied. They recalculated, reprogrammed, and improvised. Against impossible odds, they restored partial control. The probe continued its mission, sending back data long after it should have died. When I asked my science officer to analyze how they achieved this, she responded, "They refused to accept failure." That phrase haunts me. Refusal is not adaptation, it is domination. They do not merely bend to circumstances, they bend circumstances to themselves. Implications for the galaxy. Counselors, imagine this trait beyond their cradle. Imagine them encountering a hostile world where the air is toxic, the gravity crushing, the heat unbearable. Where others would turn away, humans will invent. They will design new lungs, new shelters, new machines. They will not retreat. They will adapt. Imagine them facing species older, wiser, stronger. They will lose, perhaps, but the loss will only teach them, and they will return, stronger, smarter, more dangerous. No victory against them will ever be final. Personal reflection unredacted. Counselors, I admit my fear grows daily. I have studied countless civilizations. Some are peaceful, some aggressive, some adaptable. But never have I encountered a species that embodies all traits at once, sharpened to such a degree. If humans were merely violent, they would burn out. If they were merely adaptable, they would endure quietly. But violent and adaptable? That is a force no galaxy can resist. When they rise among the stars, their motto will not be survival. It will be conquest. Not because they seek it deliberately, but because they will have no other way to exist. I believe we are not watching a fragile species climbing toward the stars. We are watching inevitability itself. Signed, Commander Tival.
To the High Council of Sciphorian Order. Final Report. Designate World Sol 3. Submitted by Commander Tival. Counselors, this shall be my last transmission before I return to the core worlds. I have detailed the violence, compassion, curiosity, and adaptability of the humans. Now I deliver my conclusion, one that chills me even as I write. Humans are the most dangerous species in the known universe. They are not yet the strongest. Their weapons are primitive compared to ours, their fleets scattered, their science still clumsy in places. But danger does not lie in present strength. Danger lies in potential, in inevitability, and humans are inevitable. The apex pattern. Across my research, a single pattern has emerged. No matter the context, conflict, disaster, exploration, innovation, humans escalate. Where other species plateau, reaching a comfortable equilibrium, humans break through limits. They are restless, dissatisfied, compelled to push further. A discovery is never enough. It must be improved. A weapon is never final. It must be deadlier.
A horizon is never the end. It must be crossed. They have no natural stopping point. Consider their history. They learned to walk upright, then sought the fastest ways to run. They shaped stone into blades, then refined it into steel, then into bullets, then into beams of light. They tamed fire, then used it to ignite the sky itself, propelling machines into the void. They mapped their planet, then immediately built vessels to leave it. Each stage of their existence ends not in stability, but in hunger for more. Their nature is not survival, it is ascension. The dual edge of compassion. Counselors, compassion remains their strangest and most deceptive trait. At first, I believed it would temper their violence. I was wrong. It fuels it. They claim to fight wars for peace, to build weapons to protect, to conquer, to liberate. This ability to mask destruction in the language of compassion grants them moral justification for acts of unparalleled violence. They can kill billions and still believe themselves righteous. No other species I have studied merges empathy with brutality so seamlessly. It allows them to destroy with clean conscience. It transforms conquest into destiny. Their compassion is the sword's second edge, and it cuts deeper than steel. Their relationship with death. Perhaps the most chilling discovery. Humans do not fear death as we do. Yes, they mourn. Yes, they grieve. But they accept death in ways most civilizations cannot fathom. They hurl themselves into impossible odds, knowing survival is unlikely. They willingly sacrifice themselves for family, tribe, nation, or even abstract ideals. Better to die standing than live kneeling. Such words echo through their records. This acceptance makes them unpredictable in battle. They will charge into certain death if it means their kin will live, or if it means their enemies will fall. How do you deter a species that does not cling to life above all else? Death is not an end for them. It is a currency they are willing to spend. The galactic projection. Counselors, imagine humanity beyond its home world. Imagine billions of restless beings expanding outward with their unending hunger. They will colonize hostile worlds not because they are easy, but because they are hard. They will meet alien species not with hesitation, but with questions, trade, alliances, and when those falter, war. They will learn from every defeat, every resistance, every obstacle. And they will return stronger, always stronger. If one world destroys them, another colony will rise. If one fleet is annihilated, another will adapt. If one enemy defeats them, they will study that enemy until the weakness is found. Even should the entire galaxy unite to stop them, I fear the outcome would not be eradication. It would be education. Humanity would survive, hidden in corners, scattered among the stars, and from those embers they would rise again. The apex threat defined. I submit, therefore, that humans embody what I now call the apex threat principle. The most dangerous species is not the strongest, nor the wisest, nor the oldest. It is the one that refuses extinction. That is humanity. They will not be the most powerful species forever. They will be the last. When others fade, stagnate, or self-destruct, humans will endure, evolve, and inherit the galaxy. This is not prophecy. It is probability. Personal reflection. Confidential. Counselors, I began this mission with arrogance. I believed I was studying primitives, violent children playing with fire. I believed our superiority was guaranteed. Now I am not so sure. I have seen the fire in their eyes, not as a soldier, but as a father. I watched a human child fall, bleed, and rise again with determination I have never witnessed in our kind. That child's spirit is humanity's essence. Fall, bleed, rise again. I confess, I fear them. I do not fear their weapons, their fleets, or their science. I fear their persistence, their refusal, their inevitability. If they ever unite, if their tribes, nations, and factions dissolve into a single purpose, then no force in the known universe will stop them. Not ours, not anyone's. The galaxy should not ask if humanity will rise. The galaxy should ask when. Signed, Commander Tival. Final report concluded.